Coming in at number 10, she's not the best actor. Madonna has completely dominated the music industry, but sadly that doesn't always translate to the silver screen. She's been in 19 films throughout the course of her career, but not all of them were shiners. Starring in the 1996 film adaptation of the musical Evita earned the singer a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. But on the flip side, she's also won 9 Razzies. Razzies are the infamous antithesis of the Oscars for worst performances, and she won the dubious honor of Worst Actress of the Century in 2000. Rough play if you ask me. She's also turned down some pretty famous roles, including as one of the leading girls in Showgirls. While she's likely best known for acting and singing, she's also directed 2 feature films. One was in 2007 called Filth and Wisdom, the other in 2011 called W.E. Neither of these movies received the warmest of receptions from critics or audiences, and it was pretty universally panned as far as movies go. And at number 9, she suffers from brontophobia. Madonna reportedly has a massive phobia called brontophobia. Brontophobia is a fear of thunder and lightning. When she sees a storm coming, reportedly she closes all the blinds on windows and puts on giant headphones to drown out the sound of the thunder. At the end of the day, despite being one of the biggest pop stars the world has ever known, she's still very much human, with her own flaws and fears like the rest of us. Next up on the list is she dated John F. Kennedy Jr. While we all know of Madonna's infamous relationship over the years to people like Sean Penn, Vanilla Ice, Dennis Rodman, Lenny Kravitz, and Tupac, Madonna also dated the former president's son. Her disastrous marriage to Sean Penn is well recorded, and it's an open secret that it blew up due to accusations of infidelity, general chaos, and physical harm towards one another. Sean became known for his unpredictable outbursts and temper tantrums with a major jealous streak. He would often fly off the rails when he saw another man getting close to Madonna. That being said, following her messy divorce from Sean Penn, Madonna briefly dated John F. Kennedy Jr. for 6 months. In a memoir penned about the president's son that spends a bit of time delving into his romantic past, he's been linked to other celebrities like Darlie Hannah and Sarah Jessica Parker. But one of the least documented relationships he's been in was surprisingly with Madonna. Madonna was far from a big hit with the Kennedy family, with the pop star heavily leaning into the Marilyn Monroe imagery — can't imagine Jackie Kennedy being a big fan of that one — and the general disapproval of her religious iconography for fashion purposes. But the brief relationship absolutely did not last long, mostly because despite Madonna's recent past with Sean Penn, she actually found Kennedy to be much more frightening. Quote, whereas Sean would act out, perhaps give a photographer a body shot just to vent, somehow John's way seemed more personal. Madonna said that he would get up in her face, maybe an inch away, and scream at her at the top of his lungs when they were in a fight. I'm glad she left.
At number 7, Erin and Sarah Foster. A lot of celebrities really love interacting with their fans. They're the ones who support their favorite celebrities the most, and without them, they wouldn't have the careers that they do. When fans approach a celebrity, a lot of times they're welcomed with open arms, so to speak, and get to have a nice interaction with them, but apparently not when it comes to Madonna. According to Erin and Sarah Foster, the daughters of music producer David Foster, Madonna was less than welcoming to her young fans. The sisters told sources about how they got to meet Madonna after school once and how the singer completely brushed them off. Erin told sources, quote, I will never forget this. I tried to copy one of her outfits. I wore a blue satin button-up shirt because she wore that at one of the award shows. I tried to recreate the look so when she would see me she'd think, oh, you're really cool. She was not impressed. She was like, what are these kids doing here? She wanted nothing to do with us. Unquote. In a way, this was a warning to any other fan that if they tried to interact with the singer, they are likely going to be brushed off in the same way. Before we continue talking about the celebrities who aren't too fond of Madonna, why not take a quick moment to leave a like on this video to show your support for the channel, and also consider subscribing as well to see more videos like this one.
Coming in at number 6, she kissed Drake at Coachella and it was so awkward. Okay, this one definitely isn't a secret considering how extensive the media coverage was, but I'm struggling here, so give me a break. At Coachella in 2015, Madonna appeared during a Drake performance where she danced around him while he was sitting in a chair. Then she went right up to him and basically stuck her tongue down his throat on stage for all to see. The shocked look on Drake's face afterwards definitely wasn't pleasant, and the non-consensuality of it all was definitely an extremely hot topic.
At number 5, Prince. Even after his passing, fans have said that Madonna has disrespected Prince on multiple occasions, and that kind of warns fans as to what kind of person Madonna is behind the scenes. fans. Let's talk about what started their feud first, and then we'll move on to the most recent incident that fans found unacceptable. Back in 1994, Madonna seemingly mocked the late Prince in an interview with the Los Angeles Times. She recalled the time when she and Prince were dining together, saying, quote, "I had dinner with Prince once and he was just sipping tea very daintily. I was stuffing food down my face and I was like, 'Aren't you going to eat?' And I thought, oh my god, I have this theory about people who don't eat. They annoy me. It's something about being in control." End quote. Fans thought that this comment was a little uncalled for, but not as uncalled for as when she called Prince a quote, "little troll" back in 1985 after they dated briefly. But by far the most offensive thing that fans have called Madonna out for in regards to Prince was her tribute to him at the Billboard Music Awards in 2016. A lot of people had a lot of negative things to say about her performance, but most of them couldn't get away from her drug-themed accessories, which included a purse that said dealer on it. Judging by the fact that substances is what led to Prince's death, that was pretty thoughtless.
Coming in at number 4, she didn't actually move to New York City with only $35. Okay, so this one may be a bit disputed, but there may not be tons of truth to the infamous up-and-coming Madonna story. The legend is that Madonna left her small rural town where she lived with her 5 other siblings and traveled to one of the most expensive cities in the world, New York. Apparently, she also only had $35 in her pocket and used that money to claw her way up to fame. It is a true rags to riches story about using pure willpower and drive to become one of the greatest stars of all time. But it may not even be true. In fact, Madonna's own brother disputes this story. He stated that, in fact, she had a few $100s in her pocket given to her by family to help her start out, and she had some connections and contracts underway to immediately start as a backup dancer once she landed in the city. While it's still an extremely impressive feat to go from pure normalcy with little money to just how big Madonna is, the story of her only having $35 may be a case of broken telephone, and people deliberately stretching the truth to make it seem even more impossible than it already was.
At number 3, David Letterman. It is an unspoken rule that when you're a guest on someone's show, you behave yourself. Not only because it's usually on live TV, but because it's just respectful to be kind and courteous of someone else's show and their job. But being the outspoken person that she is, Madonna threw all of that out the window when she was on David Letterman's show, and the host wasn't too thrilled about it. In 1994, Madonna made an appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman, and it went so far left that it circled right back around and kept going left, you know? While the singer was doing her guest appearance, she kept dropping F-bombs and making inappropriate remarks. She even gave Letterman a pair of her underwear and refused to leave the stage when her time was up. Her conduct was a little much and pretty uncalled for, but Madonna defended her actions, saying that her appearance was her way of protesting against censorship. While yes, she can do whatever she wants in protest, there's also a time and a place for that, and because she decided to pull this stunt on Letterman's show, she lost a lot of respect from the late night host, and he pretty much exposed her for her inappropriate behavior.
Coming in at number 2, Madonna and Prince wanted to make a musical together. In a 1989 interview with Madonna, she was asked who her musical aspirations are, and she named Prince as a vocalist that she admired. She then discussed her collaboration called Love Song. Quote, "We've been friends for years and admire each other's work, so we'd always talked about getting together to write. And in fact, there was a moment last year where we were possibly going to write a musical together. I went to a studio in Minnesota and worked on some stuff just to get a feel of what it would be like to collaborate." She then stated that her and Prince had a lot of difficulty creating a completed track. After she worked with him consistently for a few days, she left the studio. She no longer had any interest in writing a musical with him. Then, a while later, Prince approached Madonna with a demo that she enjoyed, but they ended up having to write the full track together long distance because Prince lived in Minneapolis and Madonna hated Minneapolis. The track, Love Song, did not chart the Billboard Hot 100. And finally, at number 1, Madonna regrets posing naked for her book. While this article was posted quite a few years ago when Madonna was 49 years old, and she's 63 now, Madonna has stated that she seriously regrets posing naked so often in her youth. In her 1992 book, Sex, she believes that the reception of it was less about the beauty of the female form and expressing sexuality, and more so about how people branded her as an exhibitionist. She admitted that, at one point, she was much less adventurous, branding herself as prude. Quote, "I really was not getting up to much. I don't think I was as naughty as I could have been. I was quite straight. I was a geek when I was young. I did not really do much that was interesting. I think from what I got from this interview, it was less about the actual posing naked that she regrets, but more so about the public's reception about the book. It branded her as loose rather than expressing beauty through art. 1970s. Taken from photos in her yearbook, it appears that Madonna went through high school with thinly plucked eyebrows and natural-looking makeup. Her hair is also its natural color, which was a dirty blonde kind of brunette. In 1978, she took some acting headshots where she was again sporting minimal makeup yet with crimped hair. Her eyes have always been Bette Davis-esque, where they are striking and sharp. Then, as Madonna's fame starts to soar, her style begins pivoting from natural and relatively minimal to an edgier, more punky look. In 1979, she chopped her hair off and sported a slick pixie cut. Now living in Manhattan, she rocked heavy lipstick and artfully applied shadows to enunciate her eyes. Once we entered the 1980s, Madonna has become a mega superstar. She introduced the world to the Manhattan club scene. She released her self-titled debut album in this decade and began cultivating an edgy, fun aesthetic. She over-glamorized with poppy colors in her makeup and clothing. She was quintessential 80s. At this point, she also hasn't gotten any plastic surgery done because she's so young. I doubt she would really feel the need to, especially because of how naturally beautiful she is. She became known for her bright red lipstick and smoky eye, which is now considered a classic look in part due to Madonna's consistent use of it. In 1985, she also did the infamous Like a Virgin and would embody that role for quite some time. She became the soiled virgin during this era, a woman in a wedding dress with blood pouring out of her abdomen. Her looks during the 80s are more synonymous with how people view Madonna as a whole during her height. Her look was purely DIY and almost eclectic, with each individual accessory being a loud statement piece on its own. That being said, Madonna did have some cosmetic surgery during this time, but it was done to her teeth. She got a few crowns in her teeth and evened them out to seem more appealing. As we enter more into the 1990s and Madonna exits the youth and natural beauty she had been so accustomed to, we start to see much less of a fashion shift and much more of a physical form shift. She sticks to her bold lipstick and smoky eye and often chooses eclectic outfits over something more traditional. But we also start to notice lip fillers, and her face begins to shift in a way that seems like an attempt to fight the natural progress of age. In the late 90s too, it became apparent that Madonna started on a Botox regime to keep her cheeks full and prevent sagging. Although none of this is confirmed, it's hard not to see. When she smiles, there's very little expression lines as opposed to her younger self, who showcases her smile with lines on the sides of her lips. Her eyes also look more frozen and less expressive. As we enter into the 2000s, we see both a massive style shift and a physical form shift as well. Her style becomes much more classic. She begins wearing dark, sleek outfits and minimal makeup. It almost appears to be an ode to her younger self as she transitions into a more middle-aged woman and away from her youthful exuberance in the 80s fashion and club scene. In 2003 specifically, it also looks like she got her first facelift. This is different from the usual Botox in the sense that it's not really injections. Rather, Madonna would have had surgically, physically gotten her face lifted. The surgery is super painful and hard to do, but now Madonna's entire look has changed, with not a wrinkle on her forehead and wrinkles practically gone everywhere else. The widening of the temple to move back her hairline, coupled with wrinkling at the ears, point to a scar along her hairline. The public is starting to catch on now too, as now there's tons of tabloids about Madonna's face and how she looks so different from how she looked before. We see an eyelid surgery that got rid of the sagging on her eye folds and reduced puffiness under her eyes. Also during this time, we see the first non-subtle facial surgery. Her cheeks are noticeably much more pronounced in a way that only a cheek implant could produce. Her cheek hollows are also very pronounced. Because Madonna has always been extremely lean and muscular, it would make sense that she would attempt to get implants, seeing as those who have much leaner frames tend to age faster because there's less fat behind the skin, so it appears less full. As time goes on though, sadly her face becomes more and more full. It starts to change the features that people see most. Before, Madonna's eyes were the star of the show. Her eyes are stunning. But as the fillers and fat transplants become more common, we start to see that her cheeks and her skin become more and more attention-grabbing. It happens a lot with dermal fillers. If people continue to use dermal fillers, as they get older, they just put more on top of the old fillers, and that can lead to a larger looking face. In the 2010s, we see a lot more of the same stuff. Although she's aged 10 years, you barely see it as she continues with the dermals and the facelifts. That being said, considering she's in her 50s around this time, I think she looks really good. Obviously, and here's a little rant incoming, we need to take into account that it is a surgically enhanced look, and no person at this age should expect to look like this without modifying their body in some way. I don't really want to take the angle of shaming someone for getting surgery to enhance how they look, because we've all got insecurities, and I can't imagine being in a spotlight where the way you look is such a large aspect of your career and how you're perceived by millions of people. But at the same time, we also want to tell normal people that this look is not possible naturally. It is not genetics. Of course she looks great, but don't hate yourself if you don't look like her. Anyway, sorry about that, but I do feel like being transparent on this angle here is a bit necessary to continue the video as ethically as possible. Now, in 2019, we start to see Madonna's appearance make headlines again. This time for her butt. Getting a Brazilian butt lift, Madonna is now sporting a much more voluptuous back end. Like I said, her natural figure is extremely lean and athletic, so it would be near impossible for her to attain a larger butt that is more popular these days. But Madonna definitely started to sport the stereotypical BBL look that we see on people like Kim Kardashian and Kylie Jenner. She's got very thin thighs and a perfectly rounded front figure in her thighs with no hip dips in sight. Almost every woman has natural hip dips, so it becomes really obvious when someone has a big butt and no dips, where the muscle in the thigh supports the butt. Madonna definitely went for a more trendy look this time, which honestly I think is closer to her brand. As the decades progress, we see her style become extremely trendy. She embodies each decade that she dominates with music. But as her music production slows, she continues to follow the trends of the decade with a BBL kind of personifying this. And now in the current decade of the 2020s, we see a lot more fat transfers to her face from other parts of her body. Her face is getting a lot puffier, which I guess is a way to attain a fuller looking face, which is something she battles as her genetics don't hold fat in a way that it would for other people who gain weight easier. It seems she also updated her cheek implants because her cheeks have become more pronounced than ever, but this time without the accompanying hollowness below her cheeks. With the combination of a fat transplant and cheek implants, her face looks extremely full and almost unnaturally youthful. She starts to look a bit otherworldly because after a certain point, and I mean she's in her 60s now, you can't really fight age and time. Her lips have also become a lot more exaggerated around this time, with a much more noticeable lip filler dominating her face. And now in early April 2022, Madonna posted a TikTok that shocked fans and viewers. The video's weird. It's just her getting close to the camera and then far away from the camera. But it's also weird in the way that her face looks insanely different. In my personal opinion, it looked like she took the video hot off the presses of the surgery table. Her face looks puffy, but in a swollen way. And likely we'll see her look much more normal as the swelling reduces in the future. Her eyes look almost completely closed and swollen, so it looks like she got more Botox on her forehead and cheeks, which would puff up the cheeks and make her eyes look really small. Jennifer Coolidge, one of my favorite actors and comedians, has this look as well due to consistent Botox and cheek implants. A lot of fans are a little sad about Madonna's constantly changing look. One person commented on the TikTok, quote, "I've loved Madonna since I was little. Huge fan, love her, but this is a hard pass. What has she done to herself?" I think it's a hard line to tread as someone gets older. I can't imagine how dissociative one must feel to continue shifting their face to seemingly desperately reverse aging. After some time, and we're starting to see it much more now, it just looks unnatural. She's already heavily photoshops her photos on social media, and I think it all obviously points to a very intense self-esteem issue. I just hope she finds the help she needs and maybe finds the courage to embrace her natural beauty a bit more.
At number 8, Mariah Carey. I can't say I will ever understand why people insist on putting others down. It doesn't help anyone out by being rude for no reason, and Madonna has been exposed for this on many occasions. Over the course of her career, we've seen Madonna say some rude things about other celebrities that are simply uncalled for, and though sometimes those celebrities don't respond to whatever hateful comment the singer made, others do, and they kind of expose Madonna for the rude things that she says and thinks about others. Back in 1996, Madonna was asked about what she thought of Mariah Carey, and what she said was far from nice. In the interview, the singer said that Mariah's music wasn't art, and she even went so far as to say if she had to perform Mariah's music, she would rather take her own life. Super harsh, right? Well, Mariah wasn't just going to let those hateful messages slide, and she clapped back in her own interview. When asked about the comments that Madonna had been making about her, Mariah said this:
I really haven't paid attention to Madonna since I was in like 7th or 8th grade when she used to be popular, so I didn't.
Mariah later doubled down on her clapback in 1998, commenting on Madonna's latest album at the time when she said, quote, "I haven't heard the new album. Growing up, I liked her first album a lot. That was really popular. Good for her." End quote. Though the extra clapbacks weren't necessarily called for, it kind of just showed fans that Madonna can be mean for no reason, and that's just not a cute quality to have.
And at number 7, a bug was named after her. Listen, I know this one's out there and it's really not even a secret or something you try to hide. I just thought it was fun, so I'm putting it in. I wish the video was titled Top 10 Madonna Facts because this lady is interesting, alright? Sue me. But anyways, in 2006, scientists named a species of microscopic water-dwelling organisms, which is most commonly known as the water bear, after Madonna. The water bear's scientific name is, and bear with me, get it? Echinyscus madonnae. Don't quote me on that. It's also called a tardigrade, which is much easier. Although I'm sure it's because the researchers just loved Madonna's music, naming a bug after her is quite fitting, and I'd be proud to share a name with the water bear because it's basically invincible. Living for upwards of 120 years without food or water while withstanding harsh environmental conditions, these bugs are absolute tanks. For someone as resilient as Madonna, I'm sure she has some pride for her little bug, as both of them have managed to remain strong and consistent throughout their lives. Although it is weird that a water bug born on the same day as Madonna will outlive her by quite a few decades.
At number 6, Gwyneth Paltrow. In yet another installment of Madonna vs. Everybody, we have yet another celebrity beef that seemingly exposed Madonna's toxic side. Gwyneth Paltrow and Madonna were once BFFs, but apparently after the singer divorced Guy Ritchie, they had a falling out and things got toxic. At first, no one really knew what happened between them, but later on, more information started to come out and fans started to piece together this toxic picture. In an interview with Vogue, Gwyneth shared some information with the publication that hinted to the toxicity between the actress and the singer when she said, quote, "I can be mean, I can cave into gossip, I can ice people out, and I can definitely harbor revenge. In fact, I'm having a situation right now with a friend where I'm feeling pretty angry, but revenge is corrosive, it doesn't make me feel good." End quote. Later on, she referenced Madonna and her personal trainer saying, quote, "It's good that Tracy Anderson doesn't train Madonna anymore. It was too much. She keeps people waiting, it takes up your whole day." End quote. More information came up as well when a source close to the actress told sources about what things were like between Madonna and Gwen, revealing that this falling out really started happening when Madonna started mistreating Gwen, saying, quote, "Madonna would on her over and over." End quote. Sounds like quite the toxic situation.
Coming in at number 5, Madonna reminded Beyonce and Jay-Z that she is the master. Again, also not a secret because people ran with it, but Madonna has posted a Photoshop picture of Jay-Z and Beyonce gazing at photos of Madonna's album. She captioned it, quote, "Learning from the master." People were pissed that a white woman used the term master to show her superiority over two black individuals. In response, Madonna didn't delete the post, but she did edit the word master out of it so it just said learning instead. I guess that works too.
At number 4, Janet Jackson. If you really like someone, then you wouldn't want to talk badly about the people in said person's life, especially their family. But apparently, Madonna didn't really think of that when she bashed Janet Jackson while she was out and about with Michael Jackson. According to Jermaine Jackson, in his book, he wrote about Michael and Madonna and how Madonna spoke ill about the Jackson sister and how rude she was about it. Jermaine elaborated on this saying, quote, "I think Madonna sincerely adored Michael, but the feeling wasn't mutual and she committed two cardinal sins. The first was that she was hell-bent on loosening him up and getting him to see life through her eyes. The second mistake was when Michael went to dinner with her one night and Madonna had the temerity to criticize Janet. Michael was furious and not surprisingly, they never went on another date." End quote. Like, what does that say about you if you criticize someone's sister like that? There was never any drama between them up until that moment, so no one really knows what provoked those comments from Madonna. Janet was clearly hurt but brushed it off, saying in an interview, quote, "I never said hate. Hate is a strong word, but if I did hate Madonna, I'd have valid reasons." End quote. On top of that, Madonna tried to pretend like she had no idea what Janet was talking about, which kind of makes things even more toxic. So yeah, in a way, we were warned about just how toxic Madonna can be.
Coming in at number 3, Madonna doesn't like being a material girl. One little known fact about Madonna is that she has remarked that she regrets ever recording the track that would become her moniker, Material Girl. It is one of her most famous songs and became the nickname that she is most often represented by. Similarly, she also doesn't feel like she wants to be associated with a song like a virgin either. Quote, "I like them both because they were iconic and provocative at the time, but also they're so unlike me. I am not a materialistic person, and I certainly wasn't a virgin. And by the way, how can you be like a virgin? I like the play on words. I thought they were clever. They're so geeky, they're cool." She also said that she never expected Material Girl to become as big of a hit as it was. Quote, "I've never been a good judge of what things are going to be huge or not. I'm resourceful, and if I ended up in a log cabin in the middle of the forest, that would work too. These things are not mandatory for my happiness. That's what I meant by I'm not a materialistic person."
At number 2, Michael Jackson. Now we already talked about Janet Jackson and how her encounters with Madonna warned us about how rude she can be, but let's talk about how Michael Jackson also warned us about the same thing and how toxic and mildly controlling Madonna can be. Michael Jackson and Madonna briefly dated back in the day, but as you can imagine, it didn't really end well. The King of Pop referred to Madonna as, quote, "not a nice person" in a taped conversation with his spiritual advisor. He elaborated on why he felt like that, describing how controlling she was of their dates. Michael spoke out about it saying, quote, "Madonna laid the law down to me before we went out. She said, 'I'm not going to Disneyland, okay? That's out.' I said, 'I didn't ask to go to Disneyland.' She said, 'We're going to the restaurant. Afterwards, we're going to a strip bar.' I said, 'I'm not going to a strip bar where they cross-dress. I'm not going there. If that's how it is, forget this whole thing.' Afterwards, she wrote some mean comments about me in the press. I wrote that she was a nasty witch after I was so kind to her." End quote. In a way, this warned us about how Madonna treats people trying to control the situation, and when things don't go well, retaliating by saying mean things in the media. It's not a very mature way of handling things, and it's pretty toxic. And finally, at number 1, Arsenio Hall. Usually, when you strike a nerve with someone, the best thing you can do is just apologize and move on. Madonna, though, doesn't do that and instead lays into the comment she's made and just seems to make things worse. This is exactly what she did with Arsenio Hall while on his show, and it was both cringy to watch and also pretty mean. Madonna made an appearance on the show in 1990 and made a comment about Arsenio's ex Paula Abdul and her rumored rebound John Stamos. Madonna brought up the drama, but in a rude way. Arsenio laughed it off, but Madonna just kept going. She gave him a gold ring because she, quote, "felt bad for him," and dug even deeper, saying that Paula left him because she, quote, "wanted someone who was home more often." End quote. You could see how uncomfortable Arsenio was, and frankly, it was hard to watch. You can see the whole interview online, so if you want to watch the whole thing unfold, the internet is at your disposal, but it gives a really good idea of how rude Madonna can come across as being. In a way, this experience had Arsenio warning us about how Madonna can cross a line with her comments and how she will not take it back.